Hey everyone, it's Jessica with Pretty Prints and Paper, and today I get to talk to you about how I use the bullet journal system to teach. So if you follow me on Instagram or my blog, you've probably picked up that I am a teacher. So I use this system to help me stay organized and on track with all the different parts of my job. I've seen that there's a lot of educators in the bullet journal world, and we're all trying to find the best way to use our notebooks to be better teachers and better administrators, researchers, what have you. So I'll talk about the bullet journal itself and then how you can set yours up. I gear this a lot towards teachers, but I hope you can find other ways to adapt this to your system. Now, the bullet journal is a system that was created by Ryder Carroll. So first of all, I will ask you to check his video out on bulletjournal.com as to how to bullet journal so that you can get some of the basics that I will be talking about today. I have my own system, but I'll talk about possibilities first before I talk about the way that I use it. And I'm using a Foxy Notes notebook from Foxy Fix to show you layouts that might work in your system. Okay? As with any bullet journal, the first thing that you have is your key. That tells you what your signifiers are, which are basically the icons or shortcuts that you use to illustrate different tasks, events, and things in your life. Now, most of mine are similar to the original bullet journal system. The task box, half-completed tasks or started tasks, rescheduled or migrated tasks and events. But I've also added a delegation icon with a double arrow, and then also one-to-ones with initials for who I'm meeting with, notes, and then a heart for connection or moments of love, because that's also a big part of our work, and I don't want to overlook that. The index is huge, part of the bullet journal system. So this is where you can see all at once where your stuff is. I personally get really excited about starting the index, but don't keep filling it out. So I personally have to find other ways for that to work. But one possibility is that you can split it up to add some separation between things like your notes or your projects. Now, future planning is a whole other part of the bullet journal so that you can track what is upcoming as well as what is going on in your day-to-day. This is the one that Ryder uses, which is the 6-month future log. I've added a line down the middle so that you can differentiate potentially between appointments or tasks. Appointments can be anything from professional development days, early release days, things that are happening across your school. Tasks could be stuff like getting ready for conferences or knowing that you have a research proposal due or professional development opportunity that you have to prepare for, things like that. I have also used printed out monthlies, so I will just download one and it's a familiar setup, so the grid, and I'll print that out to do an overview. This also works. The rest of my stuff actually lives in Google, so my work organization uses Google Apps, so all of my future planning is on my Google Calendar, which is very useful for me. So I personally don't use this as much, but you certainly can. Educators are outcomes focused, right? Or ideally we are. So I always encourage folks to have goals in the front of their bullet journal. You may have seen this when I did my bullet journal for work video, but again, to reiterate, to have those top goals for the next 6 months to a year, and then writing down notes as to how you want to accomplish those, whether that's improving certain test scores or getting a certain number of publications or grant funding, then you can break those down and how you want to do that over the course of the 6 months or a year, and then jotting down a page number if you have more notes or mind mapping those things later on in your journal. One possibility for your monthly could look like this. I adapted the one that Ryder Carroll has, which is you have the month up top and then you list the dates down on the side. I like to have different categories, and so I adapted even further, taking some inspiration from Kara at Boho Berry and doing things like this for different parts of my job, which could be, teaching on this side where I've broken down the topics we'll be talking about in April, down to the key activities that we'll be doing that day. I've boxed off the topic, the week. I teach twice a week, so that's just noting to me that these are different weeks and different topics that we're doing. I, of course, also have administrative tasks. These can be your research tasks, your admin tasks, which could be anything from, I have to finalize our finals room, finalize our feedback dates. For you, it could be conferences that you can add into this overview, and then being able to see, like, when you're really, really busy, you can see the lines across and how full they are. So maybe that's a way you can be more strategic about where you put different tasks. Of course, the top three things for that month, and then on the side, monthly tasks that don't yet have a date, but you need to do at some point. From there, as a teacher, you probably have lots of things going on in your class for the semester or the year, and so every semester I do this time chart. I like to know the flow of things going from week to week. I think it's really important to being a good teacher is knowing when different assignments are due and introduced, so I will put the weeks across the top and then put all of our major assignments on the left-hand side going down, and just to see what's going on when. What are the balls that are in the air at any given time? So I took my Pilot Juice markers, they're really, really fun, and started shading in when those assignments are launched. So I'll tell students about the syllabus quiz right away in week 1, and then they have all this time where they're aware of the project or the quiz until it's due in week 2. I additionally shaded a week so that I can account for the time that I spend grading. So that gives me a more full picture of what is going on with that assignment. We have 2 huge group projects, so I put those on the side in all its different components, and it's kind of cool just to see how much they overlap here and what's going on there. I can see the cascade of the different due dates of the different components of the project. So this is a student project, but you can totally do this with one of your professional projects. If you have a long-term project going on, I had to redesign our physical space, so I used that for that project. Again, big research projects, proposals that you have to write in conjunction with other people, adaptable in so many ways. But again, the cool part is I can see at any given point what is going on for the students, right? So it looks like in week 9, they know they've got a lot of stuff going on. So I can take that into account when I'm doing lesson plans and things like that. So really adaptable for whatever you need it to do. Those are assignments. The other part that I really care about is understanding the flow of our concepts and lessons. And so I break it down every semester into something like this grid. Like I said, I teach twice a week, so I will make a graph that breaks it down by week and then by day. So I have week 2, day 1, day 2, week 3, day 1, day 2, and so on and so forth. Here's where I jot down, yes, some of the major deadlines, but I also jot down some of the major activities and concepts that we talk about. So we'll talk about inquiry in week 4, we'll talk about aspects of community building in week 5, being in a stuck or restorative community, and then what I can do is, knowing what's coming and what we've already done, I can connect back, I can connect forward and foreshadow what's upcoming. I I think as teachers, it is really important to connect these ideas across weeks and days to help students make those connections and have the learning come alive. And so I do this exercise so that I feel more prepared to bring these concepts into the room, think about what stories I have to illustrate the ideas, so on and so forth. And it makes it easier for me to see if I need to move things so we can adapt to where the students need us to be. So with that, we're zooming in further, right? So I think weeklies make the most sense in my job, so that's what I'm going to show you. The traditional bullet journal does a daily, and you can certainly do that. I find that weeklies, again, with the whole arc thing, I can see what's going on in the week. The weekly you can do in so many different ways, but I love this style because you can break it down into the different categories of your job if you want to. Here's where I keep all my to-do items. So this is what I will usually do is, oh, I need to do a lesson plan for today if I'm teaching on Tuesday. I need to do the slides that I need for that day. But you might do it differently. You might have, first period, I'm teaching this and I need to prepare my quizzes or I need to make copies. And then you have, a prep for your second period. So if you have more classes or more time in the day that you want to split up, add a line, split it up. If you have different aspects of your job like research and admin, you can have that be its own separate section as well, where you kind of parcel out what tasks you need to do for that part of your job that day. Very flexible to whatever you need it to do. And then, of course, the bane of all of our existence, right, is the grading. So what helps me keep momentum is that I will take whatever assignment that week and break it down to all the different students that I have to grade. I'm very lucky. I teach in teams a lot, and so we split the grading for some of our assignments. So I'll just put the assignment and then a box for every single student so that I can see that I'm slowly chipping away at the things that I need to grade, and it gives me a little more energy to continue forward. And then when I finally submit the grades on the content site, I can just check it off and then it's done. And you see all those filled in boxes. And of course, there's room for all of your other weekly tasks, or if you want to do a weekly tracker, if there's different things you need to do on an everyday basis, you can add that there. Anything you can dream, you can add to your weekly in the bullet journal. So there's like the planning and the to-do items that I keep. There's also other collections that you might have, and some of the most useful ones that I do. I do them sometimes on paper, but a lot of times on Google Sheets. So I do a spreadsheet and share that with my teaching team. But here's what it might look like for you. Every semester I get my student roster and I will list them on the side. Obviously, I would never list first and last name, FERPA reasons, and just protecting your student's identity. So never put those last names in if you can help it, especially if you're taking pictures of your bullet journal. I do two different things with this. I will do one spreadsheet with the different assignments up top, and I will do another spread with dates on top. I do this for grading so that I can see kind of where the scores lay out. And before I submit them to the site, I always kind of look over and give myself a second to assess whether I really am submitting those grades as final. It gives me some time to go back and change something if I wasn't quite happy with it. What also helps is if I'm team teaching, this is what I do on a spreadsheet, is that I will highlight the different cells of the different folks that I'm grading versus what my team teaching folks are grading. So I'll split up half of it and highlight it in purple for me and then green or whatever for them. So we always know who is grading what. For the attendance piece, my TA will keep track of all of the attendance pieces so that we know who loses points for missing so many classes. So lateness or absences all go on that tab. Very helpful. Um, some of the other collections that I love to keep are things like this. As someone who writes curriculum, I like to go through the semester jotting down all the little changes that I want to make, all the tweaks, just so that I can do one mass change at the end of the semester over the summer for the next year. That helps a lot. And then for this, you've seen that gratitude log that Kim, Tiny Ray of Sunshine, and Kara, Bohoberry have, and I've adapted it to fit each of my students. So something that I think is important is that we notice some of the gifts and the edges of our students as they go through our classes. So by doing this, you can jot down a moment where you noticed that Eliza was really shining, or that she used her gifts, her strengths in a really powerful way to help her classmate. And to be able to have those specific stories to tell their parents if you ever conference with them, or if you want to give them feedback as a student, it really helps to have that on hand. One of my favorite things. Some of the other spreads that I also have are things like TA and student expectations. As I realize the things that I expect from my students and my teaching assistant, I jot them down so that I can communicate those to them and make my expectations clear. That way we can all do our jobs a little better, and we can partner in a better way. I also have a list of good debrief questions, so whenever somebody asks a really powerful question or one that I think would get a lot of conversation going, I write that down. Things that you might also consider keeping track of are different TED Talks or videos, suggestions that you hear from other folks to incorporate into your classroom. And then also, of course, funny stuff that my students say, I think is a really fun collection to keep. Just so that you can look back at those moments and, laugh or cry a little bit if you want to. And so many other possibilities, right? So those are some of the collections that I use, but certainly are not exhaustive of all the collections that you might use. And I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. This is always evolving, so I may do an update later on, but I hope that this is giving you some ideas for what you can use for your classroom. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.